One of the challenges with that statement, which is, hey, now have to have this incremental last 1%, 2% value addition to what Google's already put out. It kind of feels like it robs the magic of building a product.
I think actually Google's doing the 1 or 2%, and I think it's up to developers to do the last 98, 99%.
From helping NASA build its lunar rover software, leading developer relations at OpenAI, and training ML models for Apple, he's done it all. One of the sharpest minds in AI, Logan Kilpatrick is now leading Google AI Studio and Gemini API at Google DeepMind.
Do you believe in the thesis that there's going to be a 10x or a 100x engineer? Because a lot of India's exports, you feel like that's under threat?
I think there is a path for those folks, and my take is that I think there's never been a better time in human history to be a developer than today.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Logan. Logan, actually, I would love for you to introduce yourself because I've seen you a lot on Twitter. I'm sure a lot of people watching have seen your tweets on Twitter. We don't call it Twitter anymore, we call it X.
Call it X. I know, it's so hard. I'm always 50-50.
So tell them what you do, because I've seen you since the time you were at OpenAI. So I'd love to know what you do.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me and for coming to I/O to catch up and chat. Yeah, my name's Logan. I lead product for Google AI Studio, work on the Gemini API, which are our sort of developer interfaces to get access to Gemini, and joined Google last year and have got to sort of see and help contribute to the crazy ride over the last year to where we're sitting right now, which is at I/O 2025. And just seeing, we were talking before off camera about this, just seeing yesterday the sort of breadth of launches and the amount of stuff coming out and like the sort of caliber of launches across deep
and the scale of usage.
Yeah, and usage is crazy. I mean, it was like 50x increase in AI usage across Google, across all of our products over the last year. Gemini app with 400 million users and sort of growing really quickly, like 7+ million developers building with Gemini. So it feels like we're fully in the AI moment right now, and I think a lot of the metrics and stuff that we're seeing is a testament to all that progress, and also just the model innovation that the DeepMind team's been pushing. So it's been a good year. It was a good I/O, so I'm glad that we got a chance to chat.
So tell me, how does somebody get into what you're doing today? Like, because I've seen some of your journey, right? Like, where did you start? What did you study? How do you end up here?
Yeah, I started. Depends how far back you want to go, but
all the way to the dinosaurs.
All the way to the dinosaurs. My early career was as a software engineer. So I studied computer science in school, contributed to open source when I was in undergrad, learned a ton of hard lessons about building software, and then actually started my early career at Apple. I was a software engineer at Apple. I was a machine learning engineer at Apple. And was doing like open source developer relations stuff with the open source Julia community. We had tons of users, everywhere doing scientific computing. And then, ended up at OpenAI, joined when it was a small startup, 200 people. Nobody really knew or cared about what OpenAI was doing, and got to sort of see that scale up to where it is today. And then joined Google last year, and in a lot of like interesting and funny and weird ways, like very similar experience. Like I didn't realize how much my Google experience was going to feel like another like 0 to 1 startup experience, but like it really does feel like that's like, and I'm sure there's pockets of Google where it feels like a big company, and sometimes it feels like Google's a big company, but for all the Gemini stuff, like it's a startup. Like people are working startup hours, people are putting their heart and soul into it. The sort of rate of progress is the rate of progress you would see at a startup, where it's like we're not doing 1% or 2% improvements. It's like, categorically new product areas are being opened up and unlocked. So it's been a ton of fun, and I think this I/O to me felt like I was pinging a bunch of people last night reflecting, and it's like this is Google at its best is what we saw yesterday at I/O, and it's even more exciting because I think we're just getting to like there's still more we're gonna do. So it'll be fun.
Now let's take a moment to talk about the sponsor of this episode. Did you know that Microsoft recently revealed that developers spend as little as 9% of their time actually writing code? That's right. A large chunk of their time is spent on things like meetings, code reviews, and fixing bugs. But why? Turns out the problem lies in how most traditional developers handle these tasks, especially code reviews. They're stuck with the old ways of reviewing code and fixing bugs manually, even in 2025. But there's a solution, and it's called Coderabbit. It's an AI-powered code reviewer that connects connects to your GitHub, uses deep learning to scan and understand your entire code base, reviews your code, and catches bugs almost instantly. Plus, it also suggests contextually relevant solutions on each pull request you make. Now, it's already reviewed more than 10 million pull requests, installed on over 1 million repositories, and used by 70,000 open source projects. And the best part, it works directly within VS Code, Cursor, and Windsurf. And it's absolutely free for all open source projects. If you want to learn more about them, check out the link in the description. Now let's get back to the video.
So for this specific pod, I want to do something slightly different. With other leaders, it's always like, I will go into the tech, I'll go into, what are the implications for engineers, etc. But you've been investing a lot in a bunch of startups, right? You did Cursor early. I think what I'd like to ask you is, now that all of this is coming out and we've got APIs to use, if I was a developer, but also a developer looking at the saturation of everything that's being built right now, right? Like there's a million wrappers. There's a joke now at every Google or OpenAI event, which is, hey, this event killed 1,000 startups. Where is the value add? Where is the business opportunity?
Yeah, I think my slight reframing of this is that I think there's some things where, the meme is, you kill 1,000 startups or whatever, which I don't think is fully true. I think it's like 1,000 startups end up having to sort of slightly shift what they're thinking about and what they're focused on. And at the same time, 15,000 new startups now have this new opportunity. And I think if you look at like some of the things that we launched earlier this week, you actually, I feel that very viscerally. It's like, okay, sure, if you were doing some very small incremental thing on top of what you could do right now, maybe you're slightly disrupted by that, but we just landed a whole brand new suite of native audio stuff. And what does it mean when you have an AI model that's has native audio capabilities? It means there's a whole lot of cool new products to explore and figure out how to build. And literally none of those products exist right now. It's the whole, voice assistant market is wide open and available for all of the developers around the world to take a stab at trying to solve their problem in the way that they're excited about.
Especially niche ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually some of those small ideas are the things that are going to roll. You don't need some crazy ambitious thing. It's you just go and solve a bunch of real problems that people have. And that's the piece that makes me most excited as a developer for this AI moment, which is there's just so many of those small problems that you can solve without having to do a whole lot of crazy stuff. And I feel that all the time. The path from zero to problem solved is never been easier. But there's also never been more difficult problems in the world to solve. So it is this.
As an engineer, one of the challenges with that statement, which is, hey, you just now have to have this incremental last 1%, 2% value addition to what Google's already put out. It kind of feels like it robs the magic of building a product. Back in the day, when I started my career, I actually raised money for a very tiny startup. We wanted to build a recruitment platform. It was a lot of fun building everything from scratch. And a lot of engineers are still caught up with the idea of, I need to build everything from scratch. So it kind of feels like a defeatist attitude to go in there and just build the last 1%. But maybe coming from you, it would be very useful to people on how to think about it, because I think it's a perspective shift, right?
Yeah, my perspective shift for you is I think actually Google's doing the 1 or 2%, and I think it's up to developers to do the last 98, 99%. And my mindset of this is the AI bit that Google is providing for us as a model provider, as an infrastructure provider, is sort of the foundational base. The ideal world is we take care of, we provide you tools, so as a developer, you can go and solve the problems you care about, but we have hypotheses of what your problems are, but you are as the developer are in the driver's seat to figure out what are the things that matter to you and what are the problems you want to solve. And I think there's just the opportunity space of how to solve that problem is where most of the value is created. I think the Gemini model, and actually there's a really good example of this, and I'll give you the example, which is if you look at just purely from a monetization standpoint, where do dollars flow for people who are building products? One of the things that dollars flow to is you have to pay for AI models. If you're hosting them, or if you're using a hosted model, you pay for it. It costs anywhere from a few cents to a few dollars per million tokens. if you look at the monetization potential that AI products at the application layer have on top of the cost of models, it's like the cost of models goes down and to the right. The availability of AI systems goes up and to the right. The number of customers who know about AI systems is up and to the right. The performance of AI models is up and to the right. The consumer willingness to spend on AI because they've seen what these systems are capable of also goes up and to the right. So it's like infrastructure providers, it's a sort of commodity layer. The value is at the application layer, and the value is what developers are going to actually go and build with the models. And I think it's this like beautiful, I don't think there's been a platform shift where this has been true. I think if you looked at historical platform shifts, like, you know, all the value was captured by some other angle of it or something like that. For this one, I think the value is being captured by developers at the application layer.
Got it. And like you mentioned, it's more about solving a problem, which is as much a developer role as it is so much more than development, right? Finding customers, getting distribution, which is a pretty interesting sort of world to live in. Do you have specific ideas that you would build if you were running a startup today on top of everything that you saw at I/O today?
One of the ones that I'm really, really excited about is this, and our team talks about this a lot, which is this idea of AI copresence, where you have so many systems today, that AI tools and systems that require the user to do all the heavy lifting of trying to bring the context to that model or bring the context to that AI system. And without the right context, AI systems are basically useless. Like if you go and like ask a model today, some generic like boilerplate question, you're gonna get a pretty meh response from the model. But the exciting thing is like we now have models that are sort of multimodal, and like you can have the model hear, see, and actually like talk to the model about the content that you want. And screen understanding, I think, is this really unique use case where we're seeing a ton of traction around actually all the context that the model needs is on the screen somewhere. So like just have the model look at the screen and have it, maybe with your permission, continuously look at the screen and just find things throughout your day. Oh, hey, by the way, I saw you doing this manual workflow. Actually, that's a capability as a AI system I can help you with, and like, let me help you do it. Like that type of
So like an upgrade system which is constantly looking at your screen and saying, hey, you know what? I just ran deep research on what you did over the last hour. Here are the 3 tools you should be using that other people can, you know, have used to sort of drop your time on this from 10 minutes to 2 minutes.
Exactly. Like that? And ideally, like, it just goes and solve. Like, maybe I'm like, hey, actually, you know, I'm starting to do this search for a flight, and then the models has the proactive bit where it can just say, hey, oh, actually, you know what? Like, what are you trying to do? Just tell me, and I'll go take care of that. Like, kind of like you would like a human looking over your shoulder. If I walked by my partner and she's about to do something, I could be like, oh, actually, let me do that for you, and, go and take care of it. And I'll go off, do the task, and then come back and be like, we're good to go. I think we're going to see AI systems do that more. And I think the Gemini app's going to do that more. We're building the infrastructure on the developer side to help people build products like that. So I'm super excited. I think this is like the AI that people have actually always wanted, and we just haven't had the right tooling and infrastructure and models in place, but I think we're getting very close to that.
Do you think services companies are going to make a comeback? Do you think we still require somebody in between? Let's say if it's an audio use case, let's say you're building a call center, right? Do you think that the person that runs the call center can directly come work with Gemini or these tools, or do you think there's going to be a layer in between of somebody that just builds expertise on, hey, I know how to do call centers well, I know how to use the models, I know how to feed in your specific company's context, I'm willing to dig through everything that the company's done, and then also help you solve edge cases over the first few months?
I think that is going to happen, and I think a lot of this is rooted in like humans trust humans. Like at the end of the day, I think like if I'm building a business and I know, like I have a personal connection with someone and I know they've done X, Y, and Z work before, like I trust them, I want to bring them into my business, and it's like same thing, you're building a team in any company. It's like we have a bunch of great people inside of Google, and a lot of them came from, connections that other people knew, and they're like, hey, we've done that work before. I know this person can do this thing. Let's bring them in and get them on the team and help us build this thing. So I think through that lens, like humans have this inherent need. So it's maybe not a question of like, could the models do some of those things? Maybe, sure, like in some capacity. But like the human experience is actually like over time, it's interesting to think about this. Like the human experience that people have is one of the most differentiated things, because like my lived experience is like, it's not in any training data anywhere. Like maybe other people have lived similar experiences or like have some variant of some of the experiences I have, but like if you stack it all up in the right way, it's like, actually, no, you're fundamentally unique. And like, I have a fundamentally different perspective and viewpoint than any AI system or any other person who's come before me, which is really, really interesting.
Do you have predictions for where this will go in the next 4 or 5 years? I want everything from conservative, everybody believes in this, to outlandish, only Logan believes in this.
Yeah, we had a conversation this morning with some of the people who I like and respect the most inside of Google, and the conversation was around like, what does Google I/O 2030 look like? And one of the interesting observations was just what this year's I/O looked like. And one of my takeaways was, I think this is the first year for Google as a company where we've had a product or a mechanism that connects all of Google's products together, and that's Gemini for us. And I think the world is actually going to have that in 5 years, where like you really do have an assistant that sort of goes across all, like today everything is very fragmented, and like this thing doesn't talk to this thing, which doesn't talk to that thing, and like that's true across every tool and ecosystem.
There's going to be single authentication in some ways.
Single authentication, and you're going to have tools that like have the right context to be able to help you. So I think that's going to happen. Like the interesting thing is, there's like, you look at that problem and then you're like, this is actually just like a traditional engineering problem. Like there's science involved that like we need like research breakthroughs to make that happen. But like it's actually just a lot of like normal engineering system problems. And Google is so well suited to do that. So I'm really, really excited. I think hopefully we'll be sitting back here at I/O 2030 having you're showing me the clip and I'm either fully right or completely wrong, but hopefully it's the former.
That's actually a very conservative view, which is that, like I can see it happening. I can see that, it's more like,
I'll give you my more audacious one, which is, I think the other thread of that conversation is one of the things that we'd be hopeful is like, if this technology is really going to help the world, we would be standing on stage at I/O 2030 announcing a major scientific breakthrough that was enabled by AI or fully created by AI. And the important bit of that is that it's going to be by a team it's not going to be a bunch of, there'll be stuff coming from a bunch of Stanford PhDs, but it's going to be like a student at some school somewhere in the world that doesn't look like where you'd expect some major innovation to come through. And it's going to be because that person had AI in their hands and had an idea and went and tried to make it happen and solve that problem.
Yeah, that's something I'm really looking forward to, because I think the world could use a lot more research. And in fact, it's almost like designing an experiment. I mean, having a hypothesis to designing an experiment to running it, humans can do pretty well, right? If told, if given the constraints and told what to do. So in a way, maybe the AI can help us run some of those experiments, right?
AI's co-scientist is coming. I just chatted with the team yesterday, and they're starting to ramp up and get in the hands of people. And I think we're going to see a lot of really, really promising stuff in that direction.
What do you think about the competition? I want to end with one last question, which is, I've seen some of your tweets, and it does seem a little bit competitive on Twitter/X, right? How do you see competition shaping up? In the next 5 years, are people going to use many of these models? Do you think that, they're going to pick one and then the distribution effects of that or the lock-in effects of that stick? Do you think having context matters a lot to users? Like how do you see who ends up winning?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there'll be a lot of people. There's going to be many winners. Like I think if you look at the order of magnitude of opportunity in the AI space, it's like the order of magnitude of opportunity is essentially close to infinite. And because of that, there's going to be a lot of people who end up winning, and people will win in different ways. I think the thing that sometimes I think it's easy, and maybe this is like because I'm too close in the AI space and other people don't feel this way, but sometimes it feels like the competition is like slightly, it's for the wrong reasons. And I think like the real underlying truth is like, why are all these companies trying to build AI? It's so that this thing benefits humanity. Like we're not building AI so that we have better AI than some other company. We're building AI because we want to be able to take this and put it into products that benefit humanity. And I think it's really easy to like lose sight of that in this like hyper competitive, we need to ship a better model, we need a different product. So I'm hopeful I/O 2030, by that point, it will start to look more like, less talk about my thing's better on this benchmark and more talk about like this actually created this much value for the world, and like that's why we're doing all this.
I actually have one more question, one last follow-up question, which is, we've heard a lot of talk of AI sort of improving software engineering, and you've worked with devs for so many years, right? There's been a lot of fear around, well, this is automating a piece of the job, right? And now with tools like Jules, right, you have the ability to really do everything you do on steroids. Do you believe in the thesis that there's going to be a 10x or a 100x engineer? Because the minute that happens, then, because a lot of India's exports, right, I think about $250 billion in exports a year is software engineering, right? And not software engineering of the kind that happens in Google, but like baseline software engineering, which, somebody wants some construction app, somebody in India would build it. Do you feel like that's under threat? Do you feel there's a path for them, those sort of engineers, to go?
I think there is a path for those folks, and my take is that I think this 10x engineering space that's actually already happening today. If you're using AI tools, I think, and I'm a mediocre software engineer at best, but I think if you give me AI tools and put me up against another mediocre engineer without AI tools, like, it is going to be very clear that I'm able to create more than that person is, and create at a higher level and with more velocity and more continuously. And over time, I'll actually become a better engineer because of that, because I think it's like today's systems, and I had this conversation with folks the other day about, as I was using AI tools, like, today's systems kind of just like do the thing for you, but they don't sort of pull you along, like, hey, here's how I got to that, and like, here's what you should know next time you're trying to formulate and solve that problem. So I think we'll sort of solve it from that perspective. But I think the other angle is there's infinite demand for software. Like, the world is full of all the thorniest and most difficult problems, and I think all creating more software in the world is actually going to probably spawn even more problems that need to be solved by more software and more hardware and more people. So I'm incredibly excited that I think
there's also going to be new markets, right? If the glasses actually come out,
100%.
I assume there's going to be an app store for it.
Yeah, I'm not super close to the Android XR glasses, but I hope that there's an app store. Like, as a user of these products, that's what I would want. So I think it's going to be, I tweeted this the other day, I think there's never been a better time in human history to be a developer than today. And I think future facing, we're going to be sitting at I/O in 5 years, and I think it's going to be the same thing. I think the same thing around like AI artists. Like, just because AI can make art doesn't mean that when I see another human. My girlfriend painted something the other day, and I sat there and I thought, that looks, and she's not even an artist, she's just not formally or trained in anything, and I was like, this looks incredible. Like, it's amazing to me that a human was able to do that.
But there's also a group that has lots of pushback towards this. Like, the average artist would be really furious about AI art.
I think this is where you have to, like, the important part is like meeting all of these different groups where they are. And I think if you actually look at a lot of the stuff that we launched at I/O this year around artists, it's like tools built in collaboration with artists. And I think Jules is a great example of this. Like, Jules is not a autonomous software engineer. I think we could have, it's very easy. We could,
could have branded it like that.
Yeah, that's the flashy thing. We could have said it's an autonomous software. It's not. Like, it is a tool to be wielded by developers, so that they can sort of take the stuff off their plate that they don't want and focus on the stuff that they do. So I think that approach is going to be the one that ends up working.
Got it. Thank you so much for your time. I think we're going to definitely catch up at I/O 2030, and we're going to see how many of your predictions came true and how many of them, is still work in progress. But this is interesting. I love your tweets. Don't stop tweeting. Or Xing or whatever it's called. I'm sure we'll meet again.
Yeah, hopefully I/O Connect in India.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.